Imagine this. You are standing in the middle of a heated argument. Your heart is pounding. Every word feels like a weapon, every sentence a battle. You carefully craft your next response, determined to prove that you are right. But the other person? They are doing the exact same thing. Neither of you is listening, only waiting for a chance to strike back. And then N steps in. He does not pick a side. He does not tell you what to say. Instead, he whispers something unsettling in your ear. You have already lost. What does he mean? You are fighting. You are defending yourself. You are standing your ground. How could that mean defeat? Because, according to N, the moment you engage in this kind of battle, you have already surrendered your power. True strength, he argues, does not come from fighting to be right. It comes from something far more unexpected. So what is this hidden power? And why does silence often speak louder than words? Let's dive into his philosophy and uncover the silent trick that gives you real power. Most people believe that power comes from winning arguments, proving others wrong, and dominating conversations. But Friedrich N. had a completely different view. He believed power was not in words, it was in control. Why do people argue? If you've ever found yourself in a heated argument, you know how quickly things escalate. But have you ever stopped to ask, why do people argue in the first place? N would say that most arguments are not about truth, but about deeper psychological needs. Ego protection. People argue because their identity is at stake. Accepting they are wrong feels like losing a part of themselves. The mind resists this at all costs. Power struggles. Many debates are not about facts or logic. They are battles for dominance. Who speaks last? Who controls the tone? Who makes the other back down? Herd mentality, one social validation. Some people argue not because they believe in their point, but because they want to be seen as smart, confident, or strong by their peers. N saw these behaviors as signs of weakness. He believed that those who react emotionally to arguments are being controlled. The moment you let someone provoke you, you have already lost. Nietzsche's will to power and the Übermensch. Nietzsche's famous idea of will to power is often misunderstood. It's not about brute force. It's about the ability to impose your will on reality. This does not always require words. Sometimes the strongest power is the ability not to react. And this is where the Übermensch comes in. The ideal superior individual in Nietzsche's philosophy, the Übermensch, is not emotionally reactive like the average person. He does not argue just to win or prove a point. Instead, he chooses when to engage and when to remain silent. Because power is not about talking, it's about controlling the entire interaction. Example: imagine a meeting where two people are arguing. One is loud, aggressive, trying to prove they are right. The other is calm, collected. They listen more than they speak. They don't get dragged into emotional back and forths. But when they finally say something, it's powerful, well-timed, and shifts the entire conversation. Who really holds the power here? N would argue that the person who stays in control, who doesn't react emotionally, always wins in the long run. Why strategic silence is more powerful than winning arguments? Silence, when used correctly, is not weakness. It's a psychological weapon. It forces the other person to reveal more about themselves, makes them feel uncertain, second-guessing their own words, creates tension, and tension makes people uncomfortable, which gives you control. The Übermensch doesn't just stay silent in arguments. He uses silence as a tool, a pause, a moment of restraint, a well-timed response that flips the conversation in his favor. This is why Nietzsche's version of power is not about fighting. It's about mastering the battlefield before the fight even begins. Silence is not just the absence of words. It's a tool, a weapon wielded by history's greatest minds to dominate battles of intellect, business, and war. N's idea of power was not about loud arguments or winning debates. It was about influence, control, and strategic restraint. Let's explore three legendary figures who embodied this principle: Socrates, Steve Jobs, and Miyamoto Musashi. Socrates' method: winning without fighting. Socrates never engaged in traditional arguments. He didn't yell, attack, or try to force his point. Instead, he used a technique so powerful that it still shapes intellectual discussions today: the Socratic method, a way of questioning that made people expose their own contradictions. Imagine this: a proud Athenian politician claims to be the wisest man in the city. Instead of outright challenging him, Socrates simply asks, "What is wisdom?" The man, eager to prove his intellect, begins defining it. But with every question Socrates asks, the definition falls apart. The politician, once so confident, now stumbles over his own words, realizing he has no true grasp of the very concept he boasts about. Socrates didn't need to tell people they were wrong. He made them realize it themselves. He understood a fundamental truth: people don't accept what you tell them. They only accept what they discover on their own. This is the essence of silent power. Instead of engaging in pointless shouting matches, ask questions that lead people to question themselves. Steve Jobs' strategy: the art of controlled conflict. If Socrates dominated through questioning, Steve Jobs dominated through strategic persuasion. He didn't avoid arguments. He orchestrated them. His leadership at Apple wasn't about debating every small detail. It was about controlling the larger conversation. Jobs had a simple yet powerful principle: don't waste energy on unnecessary fights. But when something truly matters, you go all in. One famous example was his battle with his own team over the iPhone's design. Engineers wanted physical buttons. Jobs wanted a full touchscreen. Instead of arguing endlessly, he led them to see his vision. He let them debate, express concerns, until they realized, through his guidance, that a touchscreen device was not just possible, it was inevitable. He didn't tell people what to think. He made them believe it was their idea all along. Most people argue out of ego, to prove they're right. But Jobs argued with a purpose: to win people over, not to prove a point. And that's the key. If your words don't move people toward action, they're just noise. Miyamoto Musashi, the silent samurai who won before the fight began. Now let's go beyond philosophy and business to the battlefield. Miyamoto Musashi, the undefeated samurai, understood a simple truth: the best way to win a fight is to never draw your sword. Musashi won over 60 duels, but not just through physical skill. His greatest victories were psychological. He played mind games, unsettling his opponents before the battle even began. He'd show up late to duels to frustrate and anger his opponent, putting them off balance. He'd fight with unconventional weapons to confuse and intimidate. He didn't rely solely on technique. He relied on mental dominance. His silence, his unpredictability, and his control of the situation meant that most battles were won before the first strike.
The takeaway: true power does not come from winning arguments, it comes from not needing to argue at all. The next time you're in a conversation, ask yourself, am I reacting emotionally? Am I arguing to protect my ego, or to prove something to others? Or am I calm, strategic, and in control? Silence is not weakness. It is power, when used with purpose. Be like Socrates, ask questions, not to win, but to reveal. Be like Jobs, speak with purpose and vision. Be like Musashi, control the battle before it begins. And remember what N whispered: you've already lost the moment you start fighting to prove you're right. Real power begins when you no longer need to.